Tonight, you will discover a powerful secret. Millennial Zen wisdom can reshape your relationship with stress. Over the next 3 hours, these stories will pierce through mental clouds like moonlight, illuminating the calm within you. Adjust your pillow to fully relax your body. Now breathe deeply with me. Inhale to feel life's energy. Exhale to release all tension. As your breath settles into a gentle rhythm, imagine stepping through a wooden gate into a courtyard bathed in the soft glow of early morning. The air carries the earthy scent of damp moss clinging to stone pathways, and somewhere in the distance, a stream murmurs over smooth pebbles. To your left, an old monk sits cross-legged on a woven mat, his hands moving with deliberate slowness as he polishes a large bronze mirror propped on a low wooden table dot the mirror's surface, once tarnished and dull, gradually reveals its true nature under his careful attention. With each circular motion of the soft cloth in his hand, more of the cloudiness dissolves, allowing the light of the rising sun to reflect back with increasing clarity. You notice how the monk's breath synchronizes with his movements inhaling, as he lifts the cloth, exhaling as he makes contact with the metal. There is no hurry in his actions, no desire for the task to be finished. He is simply present with the polishing, as though it were the most important thing in the world at this moment. This scene comes from a 12th century Zen text, but its wisdom echoes through the centuries to reach you now. The monk's name is Ning, though that matters less than what he is about to teach through his silent practice. A young novice approaches him, fidgeting with the sleeves of his robes, clearly agitated. "Master," the novice says, bowing quickly, "I cannot find peace. My mind races from one worry to another like a monkey swinging through trees. The more I try to stop thinking, the more thoughts appear. What should I do?" Ning does not look up from his work. Instead, he continues polishing, his voice calm and steady like the stream you heard earlier. "Watch the mirror," he says simply. Novice waits, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, but the master says no more. Minutes pass, perhaps 5, perhaps 10, as the sun climbs higher, casting longer shadows across the courtyard. Finally, Ning sets down his cloth and gestures toward the mirror. "What do you see?" he asks. The novice leans forward, squinting slightly. "I see the sky, master, and the pine tree at the edge of the courtyard. I see clouds moving across its surface. Do you see the mirror itself?" Ning asks. The novice frowns. "No, master. I see only what is reflected in it." "Exactly," says the monk, picking up his cloth again and resuming his gentle polishing. "The mirror does not become the sky when it reflects the sky. It does not become a cloud when clouds pass over it. It does not cling to the image of the pine tree when the wind moves its branches. It simply reflects what is present, then releases it without trace." He pauses, looking directly at the novice for the first time. "Your mind is like this mirror. Thoughts, emotions, worries, they are reflections, nothing more. The problem arises not when they appear, but when you mistake them for who you are. You try to grasp them or push them away, and in doing so, you create ripples in the mirror's surface. Take a moment now to breathe deeply. Inhale through your nose, feeling the air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly through your mouth. As you do, notice any thoughts or feelings that are present in this moment. Do you feel them as part of you, or as something passing through like clouds in the sky? This distinction is at the heart of what the Buddha called mindfulness awareness, without judgment. In the Satipatthana Sutta, a foundational text on mindfulness practice, the Buddha taught, just as a skilled animal trainer would train a strong elephant by tethering it to a post, so too should you tether your mind to the present moment. This post he refers to as the breath, the body, or any object of attention that anchors you in the now. Modern neuroscience helps us understand why this practice is so powerful. When you're not focused on a specific task, your brain defaults to what's known as the default mode network, a collection of brain regions that become active when you're thinking about yourself, your past, or your future. This is the network responsible for that monkey mind the novice described, the endless stream of thoughts about what happened yesterday, what might happen tomorrow, and how you measure up to others. While this network serves important functions, like planning for the future and processing social information, excessive activation is linked to anxiety, depression, and rumination. Mindfulness practice effectively quiets this network, activating instead regions associated with focused attention. An emotional regulation dot, the bronze mirror in Huning's courtyard, serves as a perfect metaphor for this dynamic. When the mirror is undisturbed, it clearly reflects whatever is before it. When it's agitated by wind, by touch, by attempts to wipe it too vigorously, the reflections become distorted. So too with your mind. When you allow it to rest in awareness, without trying to control what appears, you see clearly. When you react to thoughts and feelings with resistance or attachment, your perception becomes clouded. The novice in our story, still looking troubled, asks, "But Master, how do I stop creating these ripples?" The more I try not to react, the more I seem to do so. Huineng smiles gently and points to the mirror. Notice that I do not struggle with the tarnish. I do not curse it or pretend it isn't there. I simply wipe it with care, returning it to its natural state of clarity. So too with your mind. The ripples are not the problem, your relationship to them is. He picks up a small wooden bucket and pours a few drops of water onto the mirror's surface. The reflections distort momentarily, then settle back into clarity. "See," he says, "the mirror does not resist the water. It accepts it, and when the water evaporates or is wiped away, it remains unchanged." This is the nature of your true self, not the reflections, but that which enables the reflection. This true self is what Buddhist teachings refer to as the Buddha nature, the inherent potential for wisdom and compassion that exists in all beings. It is the mirror itself, not the images it reflects. Recognizing this truth is the first step toward freedom from suffering. In the Mahaparinibbana Sutra, the Buddha stated, "All sentient beings possess the Buddha nature. Like gold hidden in mud, it is not visible from the outside, but it is always present." This essential nature is characterized by 4 qualities. Permanence, in the sense of being unchanging amid change. Joy, self, in the sense of true identity, not the ego. And purity. These are not qualities we need to develop, but rather to discover by removing the obscurations, like the tarnish on the mirror, that prevent us from seeing them. As you continue breathing deeply, imagine now that your mind is this bronze mirror. With each inhale, feel yourself breathing in clarity. With each exhale, release any tension or resistance. If thoughts appear, simply note them as thinking and return your attention to the sensation of breath moving in and out of your body. Notice how different this is from trying to empty your mind. Huineng isn't trying to make the mirror empty of reflections. He's simply ensuring that the mirror remains clear. so whatever is reflected appears as it is. In the same way, mindfulness isn't about eliminating thoughts, but about relating to them in a way that doesn't create suffering. The novice, beginning to understand, asks one final question. Master, when difficult emotions arise, anger, fear, sadness, how do I remain like the undisturbed mirror? Huineng stands, stretching his legs after sitting so long. Imagine you are walking along a path and encounter a venomous snake. If you panic and run, you might step on it. If you attack it, it will defend itself. But if you pause, breathe, and step carefully around it, both of you will continue on your way unharmed. He places a hand on the novice's shoulder. Difficult emotions are like that snake, dangerous only if you react without awareness. They are energy moving through the body, thoughts arising in the mind. They cannot harm you unless you identify with them, unless you say, I am angry, instead of anger is present. This distinction between identifying with emotions and observing them is crucial. Modern psychology calls this cognitive diffusion learning. To see thoughts and feelings as mental events rather than absolute truths or definitions of who you are. Research shows that practicing cognitive diffusion reduces the impact of negative thoughts and increases psychological flexibility. As the sea. Morning sun climbs higher, warming the stones of the courtyard. Huineng returns to his mirror. The work of polishing never ends, he says, but it is not a burden. Each stroke is a moment of awakening, a reminder of what is true. This is the path of mindfulness, not a destination, but a way of traveling. Now, as we prepare to move from this courtyard, let's take a few minutes to practice what Huineng has taught. This evening's practice is simple but powerful. The mirror meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and allow your eyes to close if that feels natural. Take 3 deep breaths, filling your lungs completely and exhaling fully. Now, bring to mind an image of a mirror, perhaps the bronze mirror from our story, or a still body of water reflecting the sky. See it clearly in your mind's eye, noticing its smooth, reflective surface. As you continue breathing gently, imagine that your mind is this mirror. With each inhale, feel the mirror becoming clearer, brighter. With each exhale, release any clouds or smudges that may have appeared. Now, notice whatever thoughts, feelings, or sensations arise in this moment. Perhaps it's a sound from outside, a memory, a physical discomfort, or an emotion. Whatever it is, imagine it as an image appearing in your mirror. Do not try to change it, push it away, or hold on to it. Simply observe it as a reflection, knowing that the mirror itself remains unchanged. If you find yourself getting caught up in the reflection, judging it, reacting to it, gently remind yourself, this is just a reflection. I am the mirror. Continue this practice for a few moments, allowing each reflection to come and go without attachment. Remember, like Huineng's polishing, this practice is not about achieving a perfectly clear mirror forever. It's about returning to clarity again and again, with patience and kindness, whenever you notice the surface has become disturbed. One more deep breath now, feeling the truth of what you've experienced, that you are more than your thoughts and emotions. You are the spacious awareness in which they arise and fall away, just as the sky allows clouds to pass through without being affected by them. Peace comes from within. It is not something we find outside ourselves, but something we discover by learning to rest in the clear, undisturbed presence that is our true nature. As we leave the courtyard now, Carrying this understanding with us, notice how your body feels. Perhaps there's a sense of lightness, or simply a greater awareness of the breath moving through you. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a mountain temple where a scholar has come seeking answers, carrying with him a mind filled with knowledge but little peace. There, we'll discover why sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from emptying ourselves of what we think we know. As we leave Huineng's courtyard behind, let the sound of the stream fade gently into the distance, replaced by the crunch of gravel beneath your feet as you ascend a winding mountain path. The air grows cooler and thinner, carrying the crisp scent of pine needles and damp earth. Above, crows circle lazily on thermal updrafts, their calls echoing against the rocky cliffs that rise on either side of the trail. After some time out long, you're not sure, as your sense of time has softened into something more fluid, you come upon a small temple nestled in a clearing. Its wooden beams are weathered silver gray by years of wind and rain, and a simple sign hangs above the entrance, carved with characters that read, "Clear Mind Monastery." Smoke curls gently from a stone chimney, carrying the faint aroma of jasmine. T-dot inside, the main hall is dimly lit by paper lanterns that cast warm, amber pools of light across tatami mats. At one end, a large wooden table dominates the space, its surface worn smooth by decades of use. Seated at this table is an elderly monk with a long, flowing beard as white as snow, his posture upright yet relaxed. Across from him sits a man, dressed in the robes of a scholar, his brow furrowed in concentration as he speaks animatedly, gesturing with his hands to emphasize his points. This scholar has traveled for weeks to reach the temple, hearing tell of the monk's wisdom. He has spent years studying the sacred texts, memorizing sutras, and debating philosophical points with other scholars. Yet for all his knowledge, he feels a deep unrest in his heart, a sense that something essential is missing from his understanding. "I have studied the teachings of the Buddha extensively," the scholar says, his voice filled with the authority of one accustomed to being listened to. "I can recite the Four Noble Truths in their original Pali, and I have written 3 treatises on the nature of suffering. But still, I find myself troubled by doubt. What is the secret to true understanding?" The monk listens quietly, his eyes never leaving the scholar's face. When the man finishes speaking, the monk reaches for a ceramic teapot sitting on the table between them and begins pouring tea into a small cup in front of the scholar. He pours and pours, even as the tea overflows the cup, spilling onto the table and into the scholar's lap. "Stop," the scholar exclaims, jumping back from the table in surprise. "Can't you see the cup is full? No more will fit." The monk sets down the teapot, his movements as deliberate and unhurried as Huineng's polishing. "You are like this cup," he says softly, gesturing to the overflowing vessel. "Your mind is so full of what you think you know that there is no room for anything new. How can I teach you when you are already certain you understand? Take a slow, deep breath now. Inhale through your nose, counting to 4, and exhale through your mouth, counting to 6. As you breathe, notice any ideas or beliefs that feel full in your mind. Opinions you hold tightly, certainties that feel unshakable. How do these beliefs shape your experience of the world? Do they create space, or do they feel like boundaries? Buddha addressed this very issue in the Kalama Sutta, where he advised his listeners, "Do not go by revelation or tradition, by hearsay or scripture, by logic or inference, by appearances or agreement. When you know for yourselves that something is skillful and beneficial, then you should accept it. This teaching encourages us to approach all knowledge, not just spiritual teachings, with an open mind, willing to examine and even discard what does not serve our growth. Modern cognitive science calls this tendency to cling to existing beliefs confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that supports what we already think, while ignoring or dismissing evidence to the contrary. This bias is a function of the brain's need to conserve energy. Once we form a mental model of how things work, it's more efficient to filter new information through that model than to rebuild it from scratch. While this mental shortcut can be useful in many situations, it becomes problematic when our models are incomplete or inaccurate, especially when it comes to understanding ourselves and our emotions. Research shows that individuals with high levels of cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt their thinking in response to new information, are better able to manage stress and maintain emotional balance. The scholar, still drying his robes, with a cloth provided by the monk, looks chagrined but not defeated. "You make a fair point," he admits, "but surely the years I've spent studying have value? I did not travel all this way to be told my efforts are worthless." The monk smiles, a warm, crinkly smile that reaches his eyes. "Your studies are not worthless, just as this cup is not worthless," he says, picking up the now empty teacup and turning it in his hands. But a cup's true purpose is not to remain full, but to be filled and emptied as needed. So too with knowledge. Value lies not in being hoarded, but in being used and renewed. He pours fresh tea into the cup, filling it halfway, and pushes it across the table to the scholar. "Drink," he says. The scholar takes a sip, his eyes widening slightly at the complex. Flavor earthy, yet floral, with a subtle sweetness that lingers on the tongue. "This is excellent tea," he says, surprised by the simplicity of his reaction after so many years of overthinking. "It is simply tea," the monk replies. "But you tasted it because you allowed yourself to experience it without immediately comparing it to other teas you've had, or analyzing its ingredients, or wondering if it's better than what you might have at home. This is the essence of beginner's mind, Shoshin in Japanese, a concept central to Zen practice. Beginner's mind is the ability to approach each moment with the freshness and openness of someone encountering it for the first time, free from preconceptions and expectations. It is the opposite of the expert mind, which filters every experience through the lens of what has been learned before. In his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, the Japanese Zen teacher Shunryu Suzuki wrote, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few." This is not to say that knowledge and experience are unimportant, but rather that they should not become barriers to new understanding. The scholar takes another sip of tea, his posture noticeably more relaxed than when we first saw him. "So what should I do with all my knowledge?" he asks. "Should I abandon my studies?" "Not at all," the monk replies, pouring himself a cup of tea. A skilled carpenter does not discard his tools when he is not using them. He cares for them, keeping them ready for when they are needed. But he does not mistake the tools for the house he is building. He sets down his cup and leans forward slightly, his voice growing more serious. The problem arises when we confuse our thoughts about reality with reality itself. Your knowledge is a map, not the territory. A good map can help you find your way, But if you mistake the map for the land, you will become lost. This distinction between thoughts and reality is fundamental to both Buddhist philosophy and modern psychology. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering arises from avidya, ignorance, or misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. This ignorance is not simply a lack of information, but a fundamental misperception, seeing things as fixed and separate when they are actually dynamic and interconnected. Neuroscience supports this insight, showing that the brain constructs our experience of reality through mental models that are inherently simplifications. These models are useful for navigating everyday life, but they create suffering when we forget they are constructs and treat them as absolute truth. The scholar, looking thoughtful, asks, "How do I empty my cup without discarding what is valuable? How do I maintain the benefits of my knowledge while remaining open to new understanding?" The monk stands and gestures for the scholar to follow him to a small window at the back of the hall. Outside, a garden is visible, with stones arranged in careful patterns and a small waterfall cascading into a pond. "Watch the water," the monk says. The scholar looks at the waterfall, noting how the water flows over the rocks, filling the pond below. "What am I seeing?" he asks. "The water does not cling to the rocks," the monk replies. "It flows around them, adapting to their shape without resistance. When it reaches the pond, it does not remain stagnant, but eventually flows out again, making room for more water to take its place. This is how you must be open to receiving, without clinging to what you have received." He turns back to the scholar. "Your knowledge is valuable, but only if it flows through you, not if it becomes a dam, blocking new understanding. When you meet a new idea, let it flow through your mind like water around a rock. Examine it, learn from it, but do not let it become a fixed obstacle." This fluid approach to knowledge and experience is closely related to the Buddhist concept of Madhyamaka, the middle way, which avoids the extremes of rigid attachment and wholesale rejection. The middle way recognizes that ideas and beliefs have their place, but they should be held lightly, like a raft used to cross a river, valuable for the journey, but not something to carry once you've reached the other side. As you continue breathing gently, imagine your mind as that pond from the garden, capable of receiving new ideas like water from the waterfall, yet able to release them when the time comes, making space for something new. Notice how this feels, whether it brings a sense of lightness or perhaps a touch of anxiety, as letting go of fixed beliefs can feel unsettling at first. The scholar, clearly moved by what he's heard, asks one final question. What is the first step toward cultivating this empty cup mind? The monk leads him back to the table and refills their teacups. "The next time you have a strong opinion about something," he says, "pause before expressing it. Take 3 breaths and then ask yourself, is this thought helping me or others? Is it based on direct experience? Or is it simply a habit of thinking?" This small pause creates space in which the cup can begin to empty itself. He takes a sip of tea, savoring it slowly. And when you listen to others, listen as if you have never heard their words before. Let go of the urge to prepare your response while they are still speaking. Truly hear them as you heard this tea when you first tasted it, without comparison or judgment. Now let's practice this empty cup approach with a simple exercise. This evening's practice is called the Beginner's Mind Meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. To mind an object that's familiar to you, a book, a piece of furniture, a plant, anything you see regularly. It should be something you feel you know well. Now, look at this object, either with your eyes open, if it's nearby, or in your mind's eye, as if you are seeing it for the very first time. Notice details you might usually overlook: the texture of its surface, the way light reflects off it, small imperfections or unique features. As you do this, notice any thoughts that arise. I know what this is. I've seen this 100 times. This is unimportant. These are the signs that your cup is full with prior knowledge. When you notice these thoughts, simply acknowledge them and return to looking with fresh eyes. Continue this practice for a few moments, experiencing the object without the filter of your prior knowledge and opinions. Now, shift your attention to a recent thought or belief you hold strongly, something you feel quite certain about. It might be a political opinion, a judgment about someone else, or a belief about yourself. Approach this belief with the same beginner's mind, examining it as if you're encountering it for the first time. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Is it based on my own experience, or did I learn it from others? How does holding this belief affect me? Is it helpful, or does it create suffering? Again, notice any resistance that arises: feelings of defensiveness or certainty that your belief is correct. These are natural, as the mind tends to protect its existing models. Simply acknowledge this resistance without judgment and continue examining the belief with curiosity. Take one more deep breath now, feeling the freedom that comes from holding your thoughts and beliefs lightly. Remember that you are not defined by what you know or believe. You are the spaciousness in which these thoughts and beliefs arise and fall away, just as the sky is not defined by the clouds that pass through it. Peace comes from within, and part of that peace comes from releasing the need to be certain, to know everything, to have all the answers. True wisdom lies in recognizing how much we do not know and approaching life with the humble curiosity of a beginner. As we prepare to leave Clear Mind Monastery, carrying this understanding with us, notice how your mind feels. Perhaps there's a sense of openness, a lightening of the burden of certainty. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a garden where bamboo grows tall, their leaves rustling in the wind. There, we'll discover how the changing patterns of light and shadow can teach us to embrace the impermanent nature of all things, and how this acceptance can free us from much of our anxiety and suffering. Let the scent of jasmine tea linger on your breath as we step from the warmth of Clear Mind Monastery into the dappled light of an adjacent garden. The transition is seamless, like moving from one thought to the next without resistance. The path beneath your feet softens from wooden planks to smooth river stones. Cool against your soles, even on this mild afternoon. The garden unfolds before you in layers of green dark, glossy leaves of camellia bushes, ferns unfurling their delicate fronds, and towering above them all, a grove of bamboo. Their slender trunks rise like pillars toward the sky, swaying gently in a breeze that carries the distant tinkle of a wind chime. Sunlight filters through the dense canopy, casting shifting patterns on the stone steps that wind through the garden. Near these steps, an elderly gardener tends to his work. His back is slightly stooped from years of bending, but his movements are precise and economical. He wears simple linen clothes, stained with earth in various shades of brown, and a wide-brimmed hat that shades his face. In his hands, he holds a small broom made of straw, with which he is sweeping the steps. But as you watch, you notice something curious. No matter how diligently he sweeps, the steps are never truly clean. For as the bamboo sways in the wind, their leaves cast shadows that dance across the stones, now here, now there, shifting and changing with each gust. The gardener sweeps a section clean, only to have new shadows appear in the very spot he just cleared. A young monk, observing this from the garden gate, approaches the old man. He has been watching for some time, his brow furrowed in confusion. "Venerable one," he says, bowing respectfully, "why do you bother sweeping? The shadows will only return. Your efforts seem futile." The gardener pauses, leaning on his broom. He does not look up immediately, but rather gazes at the pattern of light and shadow at his feet. When he speaks, his voice is rough but warm, like sandpaper gently brushing wood. "And why do you breathe, young one?" he asks, "each breath you exhale is lost, yet you continue to inhale." The monk looks startled. "But breathing is necessary for life," he replies. "Ah," the gardener says, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "And so is sweeping. Not to create a permanent state of cleanliness, but to engage with what is present this moment, this step, this shadow. Take a deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs completely before releasing it slowly. As you do, notice the sensations in your body, the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of air entering your nostrils, the warmth of breath leaving your mouth. These sensations are like the bamboo shadows here now, gone in the next moment. Can you observe them without frustration, without the desire for them to be other than they are? This garden scene illustrates a fundamental truth of existence, one that the Buddha emphasized repeatedly in his teachings. Anicca, all conditioned things are impermanent. In the Dhammapada, he states, all conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive with diligence. This might seem like a call to fight against impermanence, but in reality, it is an invitation to recognize it and work with it rather than against it. Modern psychology helps us understand why this is so challenging. Our brains are wired to seek stability and predictability. This preference likely evolved as a survival mechanism, recognizing patterns and expecting them to continue helped our ancestors anticipate threats and secure resources. This is why sudden changes or uncertainties often trigger anxiety. They activate the brain's threat detection system, releasing stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Neuroscientists refer to this as our certainty bias, the tendency to prefer known outcomes over unknown ones, even when the unknown might be more beneficial. This bias explains why we often cling to familiar situations, relationships, and ways of thinking, even when they cause us suffering. We fear the shadow of uncertainty more than the pain of what we know. The young monk, still puzzled, sits down on a stone bench near the steps. But the Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment. He says, "If I accept that all is impermanent, should I not detach myself from everything? Should I not stop caring whether the steps are clean or dirty?" The gardener resumes his sweeping, moving to a new section of steps. Detachment is not indifference, he says. It is caring without clinging. See? He gestures to a particularly beautiful arrangement of light and shadow on the step before him. This pattern is beautiful, is it not? But I do not mourn when the wind changes and it disappears, nor do I refuse to appreciate it because I know it will end. He pauses, looking directly at the monk. The problem is not that things change. The problem is that we demand they stay the same. We want the sun to shine when we have a picnic, but grow angry when it rains on our parade. We cherish our health, but panic when we feel the first symptoms of illness. We fall in love, but fear the day when that love might change or end. This insight that suffering comes not from change itself, but from our resistance to it, is central to Buddhist psychology. The Buddha's first noble truth teaches that life contains suffering, but it is important to understand that the Pali word he used, dukkha, encompasses not just intense pain, but also the subtle dissatisfaction that arises from our inability to hold on to what we desire, in modern terms. Psychologists refer to this as the hedonic treadmill, the tendency to quickly adapt to positive changes, returning to a baseline level of happiness, and then seeking the next thing that will bring satisfaction. This cycle is driven in part by our failure to recognize impermanence. We pursue happiness as if it were a permanent state we can achieve and maintain. The monk nods slowly, as if beginning to understand. So the shadows are not the problem, he says. My frustration with their comings and goings is. Exactly. The gardener says, setting down his broom. He gestures for the monk to join him on the steps. Sit with me a while. Watch the shadows. Notice how they are never the same for long. Sometimes they are dark and distinct, sometimes faint and diffused. Sometimes they cover the entire step, sometimes just a corner. The two sit in silence for several minutes, watching as the light shifts. A cloud passes in front of the sun, momentarily dimming the entire garden, then moves on. A stronger gust of wind causes the bamboo to sway more vigorously, sending shadows racing across the stones. See how they dance? The gardener says finally, they do not struggle against the wind, nor do they cling to a particular shape. They simply respond to the conditions as they are. He turns to the monk. This is what the Buddha meant by going with the flow of life. Not passivity, but intelligent responsiveness to what is, rather than what we wish were. This concept of intelligent responsiveness is closely related to the Zen idea of Sujon adapting to circumstances without losing one's center. It is the middle way between rigid attachment and apathetic resignation. Like a bamboo stalk, we can be firm in our core while remaining flexible in our response to external forces. Neuroscience supports the benefits of this approach. Studies show that individuals who cultivate acceptance of unpleasant experiences rather than trying to control or avoid them exhibit lower levels of stress and anxiety, better emotional regulation, and greater resilience in the face of adversity. This is because acceptance reduces the secondary suffering we create by resisting our initial experience. The monk, looking thoughtful, asks, but how do I cultivate this acceptance? When something I cherish is taken from me, a loved one, my health, my sense of security, how do I avoid falling into despair? The gardener picks up his broom again, but instead of sweeping, he runs his fingers along the straw bristles. Despair arises from the belief that things should be otherwise, he says. Grief is natural, even necessary. But despair is grief combined with the refusal to accept what is. He points to a bamboo shoot emerging from the ground, its tip curled tightly. This shoot will grow tall, but not without difficulty. It will face wind and rain, perhaps even being bent to the ground by a storm. But it does not despair. It simply continues to grow, adapting to whatever comes its way. The Buddha addressed this in the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, where he taught practitioners to observe the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena with equanimity, apeka in Pali. This does not mean suppressing emotions, but rather observing them with balance and clarity, neither clinging to pleasant feelings nor pushing away unpleasant ones. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind a situation in your life that is changing or uncertain, a relationship, a job, a health concern, or even a simple plan that went awry. Notice the feelings that arise as you think about this, perhaps anxiety, frustration, sadness, or fear. Now, imagine yourself as the gardener in the story, watching these feelings as you would watch the bamboo shadows. They are here now, but they will not stay. They may shift and change, grow stronger or weaker, but they are not permanent. Can you observe them without judgment, without the need to make them disappear? The monk, his expression softening, says, "I think I understand. The practice is not to make the shadows go away, but to change my relationship to them. To sweep not in frustration, but in awareness." The gardener smiles, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You begin to see," he says. Sweeping becomes a meditation, a way to be fully present with each moment, whether that moment brings cleanliness or shadow. The goal is not a clean step, but a clear mind. He stands, brushing dirt from his knees. "Come, let us walk." The garden has more to teach. They stroll slowly through the bamboo grove, the gardener pointing out various things: a caterpillar inching along a leaf, a spider's web glistening with dew, a flower that has just begun to open. All of these, he says, are like the shadows on the steps, temporary expressions of life's energy, appearing and disappearing according to their nature. When they reach the far end of the garden, they stop at a small stone pagoda, carved into its surface are the words, "This too shall pass." Remember these words when you struggle with impermanence, the gardener says. They apply equally to joy and sorrow, gain and loss, comfort and discomfort. Nothing remains the same, which means that even suffering is not permanent. Now, let's practice cultivating this awareness of impermanence with an exercise called the shadow meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and bring to mind a memory of a pleasant experience, a moment of joy, connection, or peace. Notice how it feels in your body as you recall it, the warmth in your chest, a smile forming on your lips, perhaps a sense of lightness. Now, acknowledge that this moment has passed. It exists now only as a memory, which itself will change over time. This is not a cause for sadness, but for gratitude that you got to experience it. Take a breath, releasing any subtle clinging to this past moment. Next, bring to mind a current challenge or difficulty in your life, something that is causing you stress, discomfort, or unhappiness. Notice how this feels in your body, the tightness in your shoulders, a knot in your stomach, perhaps a furrowed brow. Now, remind yourself, this too shall pass. Whatever is difficult now will change. The circumstances may shift, or your relationship to them may evolve. Like the bamboo shadows, this moment is not permanent. Take another breath, releasing any resistance to what is present now. Finally, bring your attention to the present moment, your breath, the sensations in your body, the sounds around you. These are all impermanent too, changing moment by moment. But in this moment, they are exactly as they are. Rest in this awareness for a few moments, aware of the changing nature of experience, yet fully present with whatever is arising now. Take one more deep breath, feeling the truth of impermanence in your bones. It is not something to fear, but the very fabric of life, the condition that allows for growth, change, and new possibilities. Peace comes from within, and that peace is found when we stop struggling against the natural flow of life. Like the gardener with his broom, we can engage fully with each moment without demanding that it be something other than it is not as we prepare to leave this garden, carrying the wisdom of the bamboo shadows with us. Notice how your mind feels. Perhaps there's a sense of softening, a letting go of some tension you didn't realize you were holding. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a place where life emerges from what seems barren, a rocky hillside, where, against all odds, a flower has taken root. There, we'll discover how even in the most difficult circumstances, awakening and growth are possible, and how our struggles can become the very soil in which wisdom grows. Let the soft rustle of bamboo leaves fade behind you as you follow a narrow path that winds upward from the garden, toward the rugged hillside beyond the monastery walls. The air grows thinner here, carrying the sharp mineral scent of stone, and the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers growing in sheltered crevices. Your footsteps echo differently now, striking against solid rock rather than yielding earth or soft moss. The hillside is a study in contrasts harsh. Angular boulders and smooth, wind-worn stones, patches of stubborn grass clinging to tiny pockets of soil. And in one remarkable spot, a flower. Not just any flower, but a delicate pink blossom pushing its way through a crack in a large, seemingly impenetrable rock. Its petals glow in the afternoon sun, a vivid splash of color against the gray stone, as if defying all logic and expectation. Nearby, a woman sits on a flat rock, her posture tense, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her eyes are fixed on the flower, but there's no wonder in her gaze, only a deep, quiet sorrow, as if she's been carrying a heavy burden for a long time. She has come to this remote spot seeking solitude, having recently lost her husband to illness after a long, difficult struggle. Grief has settled over her like a thick fog, clouding her days and making even the simplest tasks feel overwhelming. After some time, she becomes aware of a presence beside her. An old nun, her robes patched but clean, has joined her silently. Also looking at the flower, the woman doesn't speak, not wanting to share her pain with a stranger, but she doesn't ask the nun to leave either. There's a comfort in this shared silence, as if words would only break the fragile peace of the moment. Finally, the nun speaks, her voice gentle, like a hand laid lightly on a shoulder. It's a remarkable thing, isn't it? She says, nodding toward the flower, to find such beauty in such an unlikely place. The woman shrugs, her movement tight. Beauty doesn't last, she says, her voice rough with unshed tears. It will wilt and die, just like everything else. What's the point? The nun turns to look at her, her eyes soft with understanding. And what if that's exactly the point? She asks, what if its beauty is made more precious precisely because it defies the odds, because it doesn't last? Take a deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs and then release slowly. As you breathe, bring to mind a difficult experience in your life loss, disappointment, illness, or heartache. Notice how your body responds to this memory, the tightness in your chest, the heaviness in your shoulders, the constriction in your throat. Now, shift your attention to the flower in your mind's eye, growing steadily through solid stone. Can you see any connection between your pain and this flower's persistence? This flower growing from stone illustrates a profound truth that the Buddha taught. Even in the midst of suffering, there is the potential for growth, for beauty, for awakening. In the Anguttara Nikaya, he stated, "Just as a lotus flower grows out of the mud and rises above the water to bloom beautifully, so too can the human spirit rise above suffering to attain enlightenment." This is not to minimize the pain of suffering, but to recognize that it is not the end of the story. Modern psychology refers to this phenomenon as post-traumatic growth, the positive psychological change that can occur as a result of struggling with highly challenging life circumstances. Research by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun has identified several common areas of growth after trauma: a greater appreciation for life, more meaningful relationships, a stronger sense of personal strength, a deeper understanding of one's priorities, and a heightened spiritual awareness. The woman looks at the nun skeptically. "You don't understand," she says. "My husband was everything to me. Now he's gone, and I'm left with nothing but pain. How can that possibly lead to anything good?" The nun gestures to the rock beneath the flower. "Look closely," she says. "What? Do you see?" The woman leans forward, squinting at the rock. "I see a crack," she says, "a flaw in the stone." "Ah," the nun says, smiling. "But without that flaw, there would be no flower." The crack allows water to seep in, and nutrients, and sunlight. It creates space for life where it seemed impossible. She turns back to the woman. Sometimes our hardest experiences create cracks in our life spaces where new life can take root and grow, even when we can't imagine it at the time. This idea that our wounds can become sources of strength, rather than permanent scars, is found in both Buddhist teachings and modern psychology. The Buddha taught that suffering, dukkha, is the first of the Four Noble Truths, but he did not stop there. He went on to teach that suffering has a cause, that it can be ended, and that there is a path to ending it. This path involves not avoiding suffering, but understanding it deeply, allowing it to crack open our hearts and minds to new possibilities. Neuroscience helps us understand how this is possible. The brain has a remarkable capacity for neuroplasticity, the ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Traumatic experiences can actually change the brain's structure, but so can the process of coping with trauma. Mindfulness practices, in particular, have been shown to increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with compassion, empathy, and emotional regulation, helping individuals process difficult experiences and integrate them into a larger sense of self. The woman looks back at the flower, her expression softening slightly. "It must have struggled to grow through such hard stone," she says, almost to herself. "It did," the nun agrees. Growth is rarely easy, but struggle shapes us, makes us stronger. The bamboo that bends in the storm is stronger than the oak that resists and breaks. She pauses, then adds, "Grief is like that stone, hard and unyielding at first, but in time, it can become the soil in which something new grows." The woman wipes a tear from her cheek, this time without resistance. "I don't know if I can ever feel whole again," she says. "Whole doesn't mean what it did before," the nun says gently. "Like a vase that's been broken and mended, the cracks remain, but they can also become part of its beauty." The Japanese call this kintsugi repairing with gold, making the broken places shine. This concept of kintsugi in Japanese offers a powerful metaphor for healing. Instead of hiding or minimizing our wounds, we acknowledge them, honor them, and allow them to become part of our unique beauty and strength. This approach aligns with the Buddhist understanding of non-duality, the idea that there is no inherent separation between good and bad, pain and pleasure, loss and gain. All experiences are part of the rich tapestry of life. The woman sits quietly for a long time, watching the flowers sway gently in the breeze. "What do I do now?" she asks finally, her voice quieter but less despairing. "Be with what is," the nun says. "Grieve, but don't let grief harden your heart. Remember your husband with love, but don't cling to the past so tightly that you miss the present. Like the flower, keep reaching for the light, even when the path seems blocked." She stands, bowing slightly to the woman. "I'll leave you with this teaching from the Buddha, from the Salaitha Sutta. Just as when two sticks are rubbed together, they produce fire and then are themselves consumed, so too when ignorance and craving come together, suffering arises, and when they cease, suffering ceases." The woman looks confused. "What does that mean?" "It means that suffering is not a permanent state," the nun explains. "It is created by certain conditions, and when those conditions change, suffering changes too. Grief is part of love, but it does not have to define you forever. In time, the sharp edges will soften, and you will find a way to carry your loss without being carried away by it. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind again the difficult experience you thought of earlier. This time, instead of focusing on the pain, try to see it as a teacher. What has it taught you about yourself? About life? About what matters most? Even if the lessons are hard, even if you're not ready to fully embrace them, can you acknowledge that there might be wisdom in the struggle?" The woman stands, stretching slightly as if releasing tension she's held for months. "Thank you," she says to the nun. "I don't feel better exactly, but lighter somehow." The nun smiles. Healing is not about feeling better immediately. It's about making space for whatever arises: pain, sadness, even moments of peace, and trusting that they are all part of the journey. She gestures to the flower. "Come back and visit it sometimes. Watch how it changes, how it adapts to sun and rain, how it continues to grow despite the stone." The woman nods. "I will," she says. "Now, let's practice cultivating this awareness of growth through difficulty with an exercise called the flower from stone meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and bring to mind a difficult experience from your past, something that caused you pain, but that you have moved through, at least partially. It might be a loss, a failure, a betrayal, or a period of illness. As you recall this experience, notice how it feels in your body now, compared to how it felt at the time. There may still be some discomfort, but it's likely different, softer, less overwhelming. Now, reflect on what this experience taught you. What strengths did you discover in yourself? What did you learn about what matters most to you? How did it change your relationships with others or your understanding of life? Acknowledge any growth that came from this difficulty, even if it's small. This is not to say that the experience was good or that you would choose it, but rather to recognize that you did not emerge unchanged. Now, imagine this difficult experience as the stone in our story, the hard, unyielding surface that seemed impenetrable. Imagine the growth, the lessons, the newfound strengths as the flower pushing through the crack. See how they are connected, how one made the other possible. Take a deep breath, honoring both the stone and the flower, the difficulty and the growth that came from it. Finally, bring your attention to any current challenges you are facing. You may not see the flower yet, and that's okay. But can you trust that even now, beneath the surface, something is stirring? Can you hold space for the possibility of growth, even if it's not visible? Rest in this awareness for a few moments, feeling the truth that even in the hardest times, there is life beneath the surface, waiting for its moment to bloom. Peace comes from within, and sometimes that peace is forged in the fire of difficult experiences. Like the flower growing from stone, we are more resilient than we know, capable of finding light, even in the darkest places. As we prepare to leave this hillside, carrying the image of that remarkable flower with us, notice how your heart feels. Perhaps there's a sense of quiet strength, a recognition of your own capacity to grow through whatever life brings. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a riverbank where travelers prepare to cross to the other side. There, we'll discover the wisdom of knowing when to hold on and when to let go, the tools that help us navigate life's challenges, and the freedom that comes from releasing them when they've served their purpose. Let the image of the flower growing from stone stay with you as you follow the path down from the hillside, gradually descending toward the sound of rushing water. The air becomes more humid here, carrying the fresh, clean scent of river water, mixed with the earthy aroma of wet clay. The path widens and softens underfoot, transitioning from rough stone to smooth, packed dirt. Before long, you reach the banks of a wide river. Its waters flow swiftly, their surface gleaming in the late afternoon sun like a ribbon of liquid silver. Along the shore, several travelers have gathered, preparing to cross. Some load supplies into small wooden boats, while others check the strength of their oars or simply sit and watch the current, their expressions a mix of anticipation and caution. Near the water's edge, a young man stands looking out at the river, clutching a large, heavy backpack that seems to weigh him down. His brow is furrowed with concentration, and every few moments he glances down at a map clutched in his hand, as if verifying his route for the 100th time. He has traveled far to reach this river, and the journey has been difficult uphill. Climbs, rocky paths, and days without enough water. Now, as he faces this final obstacle, he feels a sense of both excitement and trepidation. A boatman, his skin weathered by sun and wind, approaches the young man. "Are you crossing?" he asks, gesturing to a small wooden boat tied to the shore. The young man nods, his eyes still fixed on the river. "I need to get to the other side," he says. "I've heard there's a village there where I can find work, a place to settle. The current is strong today," the boatman says, "but manageable for one with a steady hand. Are you prepared?" The young man pats his backpack. "I have everything I need," he says. "Provisions, tools, my map, everything that helped me get this far." The boatman smiles, a weathered, knowing smile. "Good," he says. "But may I ask you a question? Once we reach the other side, what will you do with your boat?" The young man looks confused. "Do with it? I'll take it with me, of course. It's helped me cross the river. Surely it will be useful on the other side." The boatman's smile widens. "You would carry the boat on your back as you walk through the village? When you climb the hills beyond, when you sleep at night? That sounds ridiculous, the young man says, laughing. The boat is heavy. It would slow me down. It's only useful on the water. Exactly, the boatman says, his tone serious now. And yet so many people carry their boats with them, long after they've left. The river. They cling to the tools that help them cross one obstacle, not realizing those tools become burdens when facing new challenges. Take a deep breath now, feeling the air flow in and out of your lungs with ease. As you breathe, notice if there's anything you're carrying that no longer serves you, a belief, a habit, a way of thinking that once helped you navigate a difficult time, but now feels like a burden. How does it feel in your body? A tightness in your chest? A heaviness in your shoulders? This exchange between the young man and the boatman echoes a teaching of the Buddha found in the Alagadappama Sutta, where he compares his teachings to a raft. Just as a raft is useful for crossing a river, but not to be carried around afterward, the Buddha said, so too are my teachings useful for crossing over the flood of suffering, but not to be clung to as a possession. The Buddha's point is clear. His teachings indeed, any tools, ideas, or strategies we use in life, are means to an end, not ends in themselves. They serve a purpose in helping us navigate specific challenges, but they become obstacles when we hold on to them rigidly, applying them to situations for which they were never intended. Modern psychology refers to this as cognitive rigidity, the inability to adapt one's thinking or behavior to new situations. Research shows that cognitive rigidity is associated with a range of psychological difficulties, including anxiety, depression, and obsessive-compulsive tendencies. It activates the brain's threat detection system as the mind perceives any deviation from familiar patterns as potentially dangerous. The young man, still looking thoughtful, climbs into the boat, his backpack still securely on his back. The boatman pushes off from shore, and they begin to glide across the river, the oars dipping into the water with a rhythmic splash dot as they cross. The young man looks down at his backpack, then at the map in his hand. You're saying I should abandon what's helped me get this far? He asks, his voice showing his confusion. That doesn't make sense. These things have kept me safe, helped me find my way. Not abandon, the boatman corrects, steering the boat skillfully around a small rock jutting out of the water. But recognize their purpose. Your map was essential when you were lost in the mountains. Your provisions kept you from starving. But once you reach the village, will you need to carry all that food with you? Will you study the map when you're sitting by the fire in your new home? The young man considers this. I suppose not, he admits. But it's hard to let go. What if I need them again? What if there's another river, another mountain? The river you cross today is not the river you crossed yesterday, the boatman says. And the mountain ahead is not the mountain behind. You will need new tools for new challenges. Clinging to the old ones will only weigh you down. This idea that we must continually let go of what has served us in the past to make room for what we need in the future is central to Buddhist philosophy. It aligns with the concept of anicca, impermanence, we explored earlier, reminding us that both our circumstances and ourselves are constantly changing. What we need at one stage of life is rarely what we need at another. Neuroscience helps us understand why letting go is so difficult. The brain forms neural pathways through repetition, creating strong connections that make familiar thoughts and behaviors feel automatic and safe. Breaking these pathways requires effort and intention, as the brain resists change even when it's beneficial. This is why old habits die hard, and why we often cling to familiar ways of thinking, even when they cause us suffering. As the boat reaches the middle of the river, the current grows stronger, tugging at the boat and making it rock. Slightly, the young man grips the sides, his knuckles turning white. "Is this normal?" he asks, his voice tight with anxiety. "Perfectly normal," the boatman says, adjusting his course slightly. "The middle of the river is always the hardest. But if we panic, if we try to fight the current instead of working with it, that's when we get into trouble." He glances at the young man's backpack. "You might find it easier if you set that down. It's throwing off your balance." The young man hesitates, then slowly removes the backpack and sets it beside him in the boat. Immediately, he sits up straighter, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "That does feel better," he admits. "Sometimes we carry things not because they're useful, but because we're afraid of what might happen if we let them go," the boatman says. "We hold on to old grudges, outdated beliefs, relationships that no longer nourish us all, because the unknown feels scarier than the familiar, even when the familiar is painful." This insight speaks to the psychological concept of loss aversion, the tendency to prefer avoiding losses to acquiring equivalent gains. Research shows that the pain of losing something is psychologically twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. This explains why we often cling to things that no longer serve us. The fear of what we might lose by letting go feels stronger than the potential benefit of moving on. As they approach the far shore, the young man begins packing his things back into his backpack, preparing to disembark. "Thank you for your wisdom," he says to the boatman. "I think I understand what you're saying. The tools that helped me cross the river aren't necessarily the ones I'll need on the other side." The boatman nods, guiding the boat gently toward the shore. "Wisdom is knowing the difference," he says. "It's not about discarding everything, but about being willing to let go when the time comes." The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, but he didn't mean we should attach to non-attachment. Sometimes we need to hold on, sometimes we need to let go. The key is to be flexible, to respond to each moment as it is. He helps the young man step onto the shore, then begins preparing to return to the other side. "Remember," he calls us. The young man starts to walk away, still carrying his backpack. "Even your new tools will one day outlive their usefulness. Stay awake to what each moment requires." The young man pauses, then sets down his backpack again and looks inside. After a moment, he removes several items: a heavy rope that had helped him climb a steep cliff, a large canteen that had carried water through dry lands, and leaves them on the shore. Then, with a lighter load and a lighter heart, he continues his journey. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind again that thing you're carrying that no longer serves you. It might be a belief about yourself. "I'm not good enough." A habit of thinking, "I must be in control." Or even a physical object that holds memories you're not ready to release. Now, imagine setting it down, just as the young man set down his rope and canteen. You're not destroying it, not denying its value in the past, simply acknowledging that you don't need to carry it anymore. How does that feel? A sense of lightness? Fear? Relief? Whatever arises is okay. This practice of letting go is central to the Buddhist concept of Wu Ju in Chinese Buddhism, or Anapadana in Pali non-clinging. It's not about forcing ourselves to release things, but about cultivating a relationship with our experiences that is free from grasping. As the Buddha taught in the Dhammapada, he who clings not to pleasure and pain, who is wise, who knows the uncreated, who has gone beyond attachment, he is not bound by the world. Modern psychology supports the benefits of this approach, showing that individuals who practice non-clinging exhibit lower levels of stress and anxiety, greater emotional resilience, and higher levels of life satisfaction. This is because non-clinging allows us to engage fully with each moment without being weighed down by the past or anxious about the future. Now, let's practice this art of letting go with an exercise called the river crossing meditation. Find comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing on the bank of a wide river, just like the one we've been exploring. On the other side, you can see a place of peace and freedom, a meadow bathed in warm sunlight, a quiet beach with gentle waves. Whatever image feels most nurturing to you. Now, notice what you're carrying as you stand on the shore. It might be a physical object, a thought, a feeling, or a memory that's been weighing you down. See it clearly, acknowledge its presence, and recognize that it may have served a purpose in getting you to this point. Now, imagine stepping into a boat and pushing off from the shore. Feel the boat rock gently on the water as you begin to cross. As you move toward the other side, notice how what you're carrying feels heavier, more cumbersome. It's no longer helping you, it's getting in the way. When you reach the other side, imagine stepping onto the shore and setting down what you've been carrying. You can leave it in the boat, set it on the ground, or even let it drift away on the current. It doesn't matter how. Only that you release it. Notice how your body feels as you let go, lighter, freer, or open. Take a moment to stand in this new space, feeling the peace and possibility of being unburdened. Now, bring your attention back to the present moment, carrying this sense of lightness with you. Remember that letting go is not a one-time event, but a practice, something we can return to again and again. Whenever we notice ourselves carrying things that no longer serve us, peace comes from within, and much of that peace comes from knowing when to let go. Like the young man leaving his rope and canteen on the shore, we can learn to release what we no longer need, trusting that we have everything necessary to meet whatever comes next. As we prepare to leave the riverbank, carrying this understanding with us, notice how your body feels. Perhaps there's a sense of lightness, a release of tension you've been holding for a long time. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a small pavilion nestled in a garden, where a monk sits listening to the rain fall on banana leaves. There, we'll discover the wisdom of simply being with our experience, whether pleasant or painful, without judgment or resistance, and how this practice can transform our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. Let the feeling of lightness from releasing your burdens stay with you as you follow a winding path away from the riverbank. The air feels different here, damp and alive with the scent of jasmine and damp earth, as if rain has recently fallen, or is just about to. The path is lined with lush greenery, ferns and flowering bushes, creating a sense of enclosure, a gentle embrace that guides you forward. After a short walk, you come upon a small pavilion nestled in the heart of a garden. Its roof is curved like a bird's wing, and wooden pillars support its structure, allowing the breeze to flow freely through. Inside, a single monk sits on a woven mat, his posture relaxed yet alert. His eyes are closed, but his face is not tense. There's a softness in his expression, a sense of ease that seems to radiate outward. Around him, the garden is lush with tropical plants, but what draws your attention are the banana plants that grow close to the pavilion. Their large, broad leaves arch gracefully, creating a natural canopy. And as you stand at the entrance, you notice that the sky is clouded over, and a gentle rain has begun to fall. At first, it's just a few drops plop hitting the banana leaves with soft, musical sounds. But gradually, the rain intensifies, becoming a steady downpour. The sound transforms from sparse notes to a rich, layered chorus as thousands of raindrops strike the leaves simultaneously. It's a sound that might feel overwhelming, even chaotic, but the monk seems untouched by it. His breathing remains steady, his body relaxed. A young woman approaches the pavilion, seeking shelter from the rain. She's dressed in fine clothes that are now damp and clinging to her body, and her expression is one of irritation. "This rain is ruining my afternoon," she says, shaking water from her sleeves. "I had plans to visit the market, to meet friends. Now everything is spoiled." The monk opens his eyes and looks at her with curiosity, not judgment. "Is it?" he asks simply. "Of course it is," she says, gesturing toward the rain. "Can't you hear it? It's relentless. And these leaves, they're so large, they just amplify the noise. It's impossible to think, impossible to find any peace." The monk closes his eyes again, but this time he invites her to join him. "Sit with me," he says. "Listen more carefully." The woman hesitates, then sighs and sits down on the edge of the mat, as far from the monk as possible. She crosses her arms tightly across her chest, clearly determined to remain annoyed. Take a deep breath now, and as you exhale, listen to the sounds around you, whether it's the rain in our story, the hum of a distant appliance, or the sound of your own breathing. Notice any judgments that arise. "This is annoying. I wish this would stop. I prefer silence." Simply observe these judgments without judgment themselves, like clouds passing through the sky. The monk, aware of the woman's tension, begins to speak, his voice calm and measured, easily heard above the rain. "When I first came to this pavilion, I reacted to the rain much as you do," he admits. "I found the sound distracting. I wished for sunshine, for quiet. I struggled against what was, and in that struggle, I created suffering for myself." He opens his eyes and looks at her. "Then, one day, my teacher said something to me that changed everything. He said, 'The rain is not trying to annoy you. The leaves are not trying to make noise. They are simply being what they are, doing what they do. Your suffering comes not from the rain, but from your resistance to it.'" This insight lies at the heart of mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, a program developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn that combines mindfulness meditation, body awareness, and yoga to help individuals manage stress, anxiety, and pain. Research has shown that MBSR can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, improve emotional regulation, and even change the structure of the brain, increasing activity in areas associated with self-awareness and emotional balance. The woman frowns, but some things are simply unpleasant, she argues. Why should I have to accept them? Isn't it better to try to change what's wrong? Sometimes, the monk replies, but not always. There is a time to act and a time to accept. The wisdom. is in knowing the difference. When it's within our power to change something, we should act. But when it's not, and the rain is certainly not within our power to stop resistance, only causes suffering. He gestures toward the banana leaves. Look at these leaves. They don't resist the rain. They receive it fully, letting the water flow over them, through them, without complaint. And because they don't resist, they remain strong. It's when we tense against what is that we break. This idea that resistance creates suffering is a core teaching in both Buddhist philosophy and modern psychology. The Buddha taught that suffering, dukkha, arises from craving and aversion wanting things to be different from how they are. Modern psychology refers to this as experiential avoidance, the tendency to avoid or control unpleasant thoughts, feelings, or sensations, even when this avoidance causes harm. Research shows that experiential avoidance is associated with a range of psychological difficulties, including anxiety disorders, depression, and substance abuse. In contrast, acceptance, the willingness to experience thoughts, feelings, and sensations without trying to change or avoid them, is linked to greater psychological flexibility and well-being. The rain begins to slow slightly, becoming a gentle patter against the leaves. The woman's posture relaxes a little, though she still looks skeptical. But how do you just accept something unpleasant? She asks. It sounds like giving up. Acceptance is not giving up, the monk clarifies. It's giving up the struggle with what is so that you can respond wisely to what is. Imagine you're caught in a storm while hiking. If you spend your energy cursing the rain, fighting against it, you'll exhaust yourself and make poor decisions. But if you accept the rain, you can put on your rain gear, find shelter, and wait it out, responding effectively rather than reacting destructively. He pauses, allowing this to sink in. Acceptance is not resignation. It's the foundation from which effective action arises. This distinction between acceptance and resignation is crucial. Acceptance involves acknowledging reality as it is, without judgment or resistance, while remaining open to taking effective action when possible. Resignation, on the other hand, involves passive submission, often accompanied by hopelessness or helplessness. Neuroscience helps us understand the difference in the brain. Acceptance activates the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with rational thinking, empathy, and self-awareness, while resistance activates the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, triggering the fight or flight response. This is why acceptance feels calm and empowering, while resistance often feels stressful and draining. The woman looks out at the garden, where the rain is now falling as a fine mist. I still don't think I'd choose the rain, she says, but maybe it's not as terrible as I thought. The monk smiles. That's the first step, allowing things to be as they are, without needing them to be different. The Buddha taught that life is like a river. We can struggle against the current, exhausting ourselves in the process, or we can learn to flow with it, using its energy to carry us forward. He quotes from the Majjhima Nikaya. When a monk sees thus, he becomes disenchanted with form, disenchanted with feeling, disenchanted with perception, disenchanted with formations, disenchanted with consciousness. Being disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, he is liberated. The woman looks confused. What does that mean? It means that when we stop clinging to pleasant experiences and pushing away unpleasant ones, the monk explains, we find freedom. We realize that our happiness does not depend on external circumstances. It depends on our relationship to those. circumstances. As the rain stops completely, a ray of sunlight breaks through the clouds, illuminating the drops of water on the banana leaves, making them sparkle like jewels. The woman gasps at the beauty of it, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "See," the monk says gently, "the rain and the sun are both part of the same sky. Without the rain, you wouldn't appreciate this moment of sunshine as deeply. They are two sides of the same coin, and both are necessary." This understanding of the interdependence of opposites is central to Buddhist philosophy, particularly the concept of sunyata, or emptiness, not in the sense of nothingness, but in the sense that all phenomena are interconnected and lack inherent, independent existence. Pleasant and unpleasant experiences, like rain and sunshine, depend on each other for their existence and meaning. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind an unpleasant experience in your life, something you've been resisting, whether it's a physical sensation, an emotion, or a difficult situation. Instead of pushing against it, try simply acknowledging it. This is here now. Notice how this small shift in perspective changes your relationship to the experience. The woman stands stretching her legs. "I think I understand," she says. "It's not about liking the rain, but about not letting it ruin my peace of mind. It's about being here fully, whatever here happens to be." "Exactly," the monk says. "And notice how much energy you free up. When you stop resisting, that energy can be used to appreciate the present moment, to connect with others, to take meaningful action. The rain hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has, and that changes everything." Now, let's practice this art of acceptance with an exercise called the raindrop meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and imagine a raindrop falling onto your forehead. Let it represent any unpleasant thought, feeling, or sensation you're experiencing right now. It might be tension in your body, a worry, or a difficult emotion. As you inhale, imagine the raindrop expanding slightly, filling with awareness. As you exhale, imagine letting it flow down your face, over your neck and shoulders, and into the ground, carrying with it whatever you've been resisting. Repeat this process with each breath, allowing each raindrop to represent a different aspect of your experience. With each inhale, acknowledge it fully. With each exhale, let it flow away without struggle or resistance. Notice how it feels to meet your experience with openness rather than resistance. You're not trying to make anything go away. You're simply creating space for it to be. And in that space, you might find that it begins to transform on its own. Now, shift your attention to a pleasant experience, a moment of joy, a feeling of gratitude, a sense of connection. Instead of clinging to it, trying to make it last forever, simply acknowledge it with the same openness. This is here now. With your exhale, let it flow away, trusting that new moments of beauty will arise in their own time. Rest in this awareness. For a few moments, meeting each experience pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, with the same open, accepting presence. Peace comes from within, and that peace is available to us even in the midst of unpleasant circumstances. Like the monk listening to the rain on banana leaves, we can learn to meet each moment with openness and acceptance, finding freedom not in changing our external circumstances, but in changing our relationship to them. As we prepare to leave this pavilion, carrying the sound of rain and the wisdom of acceptance with us, notice how your mind feels. Perhaps there's a sense of spaciousness, a recognition that you don't have to struggle against your experience to find peace. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a quiet dojo where a warrior practices his art. There, we'll discover the wisdom of living fully in the present moment, releasing the regrets of the past and the worries of the future, and finding peace in the eternal now. Let the memory of rain on banana leaves stay with you as you follow a path that leads away from the garden pavilion, toward the sound of disciplined movement and focused breath. The air here feels different, crisper, more alert, carrying the faint scent of sandalwood and sweat. The path transitions from soft earth to packed clay, and the surrounding greenery gives way to wooden fences that mark the boundaries of a training ground. As you round a corner, a dojo comes into view, a simple wooden structure with a high, open ceiling and rice paper walls that let in the soft light of late afternoon. Inside, the space is spare, with tatami mats covering the floor and a single altar at one end, holding a small statue of the Buddha and a vase of white flowers in the center of the dojo. A warrior practices archery. He stands with his feet firmly planted, his posture perfect, balanced, alert, yet relaxed. In his hands, he holds a traditional Japanese bow, its curve smooth and elegant. His eyes are focused on a target at the far end of the room, but there's something unusual about his practice. He draws the bow, pulls the arrow back until the string touches his cheek, and holds it there, motionless, breathless, as if frozen. In time, he remains this way for what seems like minutes, his muscles straining slightly, but his face calm, almost serene. Then, without any visible movement, he releases the arrow. It flies straight and true, striking the center of the target with a soft thwack. But instead of celebrating or even acknowledging the hit, he knocks another arrow and repeats the process, drawing, holding, releasing, each movement flowing into the next with seamless precision. Watching from the entrance is an older man, his posture as disciplined as the warrior's, but his expression more relaxed. He wears the simple robes of a Zen master, and his eyes follow the flight of each arrow with quiet attention. After several arrows have found their mark, he clears his throat softly. The warrior turns, bowing deeply. "Sensei," he says, his voice respectful but tinged with frustration. "I have been practicing for years, and my aim is true, but I feel there is something missing. I hit the target every time, yet I am not satisfied. What am I doing wrong?" The master steps into the dojo, his sandals making soft sounds against the tatami mats. "You are hitting the target with your arrow," he says, "but are you present when you do so?" The warrior looks confused. "Of course I am present. I focus completely on the target. I block out all distractions." "Do you?" the master asks. "When you hold the arrow drawn, what are you thinking?" The warrior considers this. "I think about my form, making sure my elbow is high enough, my shoulders relaxed. I think about the target, visualizing the arrow hitting the center. I think about past mistakes, reminding myself not to repeat them. I think about the future, hoping this arrow will be perfect." The master nods slowly. "Ah, so when do you think about the arrow itself? About the moment of release?" The warrior is silent, clearly thoughtful. I suppose I don't," he admits finally. "The release just happens, without thinking." "Exactly," the master says. "You are present everywhere, except in the only moment that truly matters, the present. You are in the past, reliving mistakes. You are in the future, worrying about perfection. But the arrow can only be released now, in this moment, which is where life is lived. Take a deep breath now, feeling the air fill your lungs completely before releasing it slowly. As you breathe, notice where your mind is. Are you thinking about something that happened earlier today or something that might happen tomorrow? Are you planning, remembering, judging? Or are you simply here, breathing in this moment? The Master's teaching points to a fundamental truth at the heart of Zen Buddhism. The only reality is the present moment. The past exists only in memory, the future only in imagination. This is not to say that the past and future are unimportant, but that they have no reality except in the present moment, where we can reflect on the past and plan for the future, without being lost in them. In modern psychological terms, this relates to what's known as the default mode network, the brain network that's active. When we're not focused on the external world, instead engaging in self-referential thinking, daydreaming, or ruminating about the past or future. While this network is important for certain cognitive functions, excessive activation is associated with anxiety, depression, and a reduced sense of well-being. The warrior, still holding his bow, looks at the target thoughtfully. But how can I stop thinking about the past and future? He asks. My mind seems to wander on its own. Your mind is like a monkey, the Master says, swinging from branch to branch, never staying in one place for long. The practice of archery and of Zen is not to stop the monkey from swinging, but to become aware of it and to gently bring it back to the present moment, again and again. He gestures to the warrior's bow. This bow is a tool for mindfulness. When you draw it, feel the tension in the string, the weight of the arrow, the way your breath naturally pauses. When your mind wanders, return to these sensations. They are always here in the present, waiting to anchor you. This use of a physical activity as a meditation practice is common in Zen Buddhism, whether through archery, Kyudo, tea ceremony, Shono-yu, or martial arts. These practices help cultivate what's known as shamatha, or calm abiding, the ability to rest in the present moment with clear, focused attention. Neuroscience research supports the benefits of such practices, showing that they increase activity in the prefrontal cortex associated with focused attention and decrease activity in the default mode network, leading to a greater sense of presence and reduced rumination. The warrior draws another arrow, but this time his movements are slower, more deliberate. He pulls back the string, holds it, and for a moment his brow furrows as his mind begins to wander. But then he shakes his head slightly, takes a deep breath, and his expression softens as he returns his attention to the feel of the bow in his hands. He releases the arrow, and it hits the target once again. But this time, there's a subtle difference. In his posture, as if a weight has lifted, if only slightly. Better, the Master says, nodding approvingly. Not because the arrow hit the target, but because you were present when it did. The Buddha taught that life is a series of moments, and to miss the moments is to miss life itself. He quotes from the Gaiman Sutra, "Past mind cannot be grasped, present mind cannot be grasped, future mind cannot be grasped." This teaching points to the impermanent nature of all mental states, including our thoughts about time. None of these minds can be held onto because they are constantly changing, yet we suffer when we try to grasp them anyway. The warrior lowers his bow, looking thoughtful. So the goal is not to hit the target perfectly, he says, but to be fully present in the process of aiming and releasing. Both, the Master replies. When you are fully present, your aim naturally improves because you are not distracted by past or future. But even if you miss, there is no suffering because you have not invested your self-worth in the outcome. You have simply participated fully in the moment, which is its own reward. This distinction between doing and being, between outcome and process, is crucial in both Zen practice and modern psychology. When we become overly focused on outcomes, we lose touch with the present moment and create unnecessary suffering when things don't go as planned. When we can focus on the process, on simply doing our best in each moment, we find freedom from this attachment to results. The warrior practices for a while longer, and gradually, his movements become more fluid, more integrated. There's less tension in his body, more ease in his expression. He's still hitting the target, but that seems almost secondary now. What matters is the quality of his attention in each moment. Finally, he sets down his bow and bows deeply to the Master. "I think I understand," he says. It's not about the arrow or the target. It's about the moment between drawing and releasing, the moment when the arrow is still, held in perfect tension, neither past nor future, just now. The Master smiles. That moment is eternity, he says. It is where all of life exists, if we have the eyes to see it. The past and future are like the bow and the target. They give context to the present, but they have no reality except in relation to it. He gestures to the setting sun, its light streaming through the rice paper walls and casting golden patterns on the tatami mats. Look at the light. It is here now, warming the room, illuminating the dust motes. Soon it will be gone and darkness will come. But if you spend this moment regretting that the light will fade or worrying about the darkness to come, you will miss the beauty of the light itself. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind a task you perform regularly, something as simple as washing dishes, walking, or brushing your teeth. Now, imagine doing that task with the same focused attention the warrior is learning to bring to archery, noticing every sensation, every movement, without letting your mind wander to past or future. How might this change your experience of the task? The warrior picks up his bow again, but this time he holds it loosely, almost playfully. "Thank you, Sensei," he says. "I have been practicing archery for years, but today I feel like I am learning it for the first time." The beginner's mind, the Master says, referencing the concept we explored earlier. When you approach something with fresh eyes, without expectations or assumptions, you see it as it truly is, in the present moment. This is the way to wisdom. Now, let's practice cultivating this present moment awareness with an exercise called the Arrow Release Meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and bring to mind the image of the warrior in the dojo, holding the arrow drawn, perfectly still, fully present. Now, imagine that you are holding a bow and arrow yourself. Feel the weight of the bow in your hands, the tension of the string as you pull it back. Visualize a target in front of you. It might represent a goal, a worry, or simply a point of focus. As you hold the arrow drawn, notice any thoughts about the past memories, regrets, things you should have done differently. Acknowledge these thoughts, then let them go, returning your attention to the feel of the bow in your hands. Next, notice any thoughts about the future worries, plans, hopes, fears. Acknowledge these two, then let them drift away, again returning to the present. Moment sensations of holding the bow. When your mind is calm and focused, imagine releasing the arrow. Watch it fly toward the target, but don't follow it with your attention. Instead, return immediately to the feeling of the bow in your hands, the sound of the string vibrating, the sensation of your breath returning to its natural rhythm. Repeat this process several times, each time using the image of the arrow as a way to release thoughts of past and future and return to the present moment. Let go of the image of the bow and arrow entirely, simply resting in the sensations of awe. Your own breathing, the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of air entering your nostrils, the warmth of breath leaving your body. These sensations are always here, in the present, waiting to anchor you. Rest in this awareness for a few moments, knowing that the present moment is always available to you. No matter how much your mind may wander, God, peace comes from within, and that peace is always found in the present moment. Like the warrior learning to be fully present with his bow and arrow, we can learn to rest in the now, free from the regrets of the past and the worries of the future, God, as we prepare to leave the dojo, carrying this sense of presence with us. Notice how your mind feels. Perhaps there's a sense of clarity, a recognition that the only moment you ever truly have is this one. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a small tea house, where a master prepares tea with meticulous attention to each detail. There, we'll discover how the most ordinary activities, like making and drinking tea, can become profound spiritual practices, and how mindfulness can transform even the simplest moments into opportunities for awakening. Let the stillness of the dojo stay with you as you step outside, where the evening air has grown cool and fragrant. The path ahead winds through a grove of pine trees, their needles rustling softly in the breeze, and carries you toward a warm glow in the distance. As you draw closer, you recognize the outline of a small tea house, its roof thatched with straw, its walls made of woven bamboo, simple yet elegant in its design. That the scent of tea fills the air now, a rich, earthy aroma with hints of smoke, and sweetness that makes your mouth water and your heart feel light. You remove your shoes at the entrance, as is the custom, and step inside, where the air is warm and still. The space is small, barely large enough for 4 people, with a low, wooden table in the center, and tatami mats covering the floor. A single lantern hangs from the ceiling, casting a soft, golden light over everything. At the table sits a tea master, an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wears a plain indigo kimono, and her movements are slow, deliberate, almost ceremonial, as she prepares matcha powdered green tea. Before her are arranged various implements: a ceramic bowl, a bamboo whisk, a small scoop, and a kettle of water that sings softly as it heats. Watching her is a young student, a woman in her 20s with a restless energy that seems slightly out of place in this serene setting. She sits with her back straight, but her fingers tap nervously against her thigh, and her eyes dart around the room, taking in every detail, but not really seeing any of them. You seem distracted, the tea master says, her voice calm and gentle as she measures matcha powder into the bowl with a small bamboo scoop. What is on your mind? The student looks startled, as if pulled out of a daydream. I'm sorry, Sensei, she says. I want to learn the secrets of Zen, but all we do is make tea. When will we get to the real practice? The meditation? The koans, the enlightenment? The tea master smiles as she pours hot water into the bowl, just enough to form a paste with the matcha. And what do you think we are doing now? She asks, her whisk moving in a rapid circular motion, transforming the paste into a frothy emerald green liquid. We're making tea, the student says, as if this is obvious. Yes, the tea master replies, setting down the whisk and placing the bowl in front of the student. And in making tea, we are practicing Zen. There is no real practice separate from this moment, from this act of preparing and drinking tea with full attention. Take a deep breath now, and as you exhale, notice the sensations in your body. The weight of your body against the chair or bed, the temperature of the air against your skin, the sound of your own breathing. These simple, ordinary sensations are the stuff of mindfulness practice, just as the preparation of tea is the stuff of Zen. The tea master's words point to a central insight in Zen Buddhism. Sha-Chan Ichimi tea and Zen are one. This phrase captures the idea that spiritual practice is not something separate from everyday life, but is rather found in the ordinary activities of daily living when they are done with mindful attention. In psychological terms, this is known as flow, a state of complete immersion in an activity where the boundaries between self and action dissolve. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term, found that people experience flow most often during everyday activities: cooking, gardening, playing an instrument, when they are fully engaged in the process rather than focused on the outcome. The student looks skeptical as she picks up the bowl, her fingers wrapping around its warm ceramic surface. But making tea is so simple, she says. How can it lead to enlightenment? Because enlightenment is not some extraordinary state reserved for a few, the tea master says, pouring hot water into her own bowl and beginning to whisk matcha. It is the ordinary state of being fully present, of seeing things as they are, without the filter of your thoughts and judgments. This is available to you in every moment, whether you are making tea, washing dishes, or walking down the street. She quotes from the Platform Sutra of Huineng, enlightenment is to be found in the midst of worldly affairs. If you seek it apart from them, your search will be in vain. This teaching emphasizes that spiritual awakening is not found by escaping from the world, but by engaging with it more deeply, with greater awareness. Neuroscience research supports this perspective, showing that mindfulness practices, whether formal meditation or simply paying attention to everyday activities, can lead to significant changes in the brain, including increased gray matter density in areas associated with memory, self-awareness, and compassion, and decreased activity in areas associated with stress and anxiety. The student takes a sip of tea, but her eyes are still wandering around the room. I just don't see how this is different from any other tea I've drunk, she says. Because you are not really drinking it, the tea master replies. You are thinking about drinking it, comparing it to other teas, wondering when we will move on to something more important. But the tea is here, now, in your hands. Its color is green, its texture frothy, its taste bitter yet sweet. Can you simply experience it without all the commentary? This distinction between experiencing and thinking about experiencing is crucial in both Zen practice and mindfulness-based therapies. When we are caught up in our thoughts about an experience, judging it, comparing it, analyzing it, we miss the experience itself. We are in our heads, not in the present moment. The student closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and takes another sip of tea. This time, She pays attention. The warmth of the bowl against her palms, the aroma that rises to meet her nose, the taste that spreads across her tongue, the sensation of swallowing. When she opens her eyes, there's a softness in her expression that wasn't there before. It is different, she admits, surprised. It's more alive somehow. Not more alive, the tea master says, just seen more clearly. The tea was always this way. What changed was your attention to it. She refills the student's bowl, her movements still slow and deliberate. Zen is not about changing your life, but about seeing it clearly as it is. And we practice this seeing in the smallest moments: pouring water, whisking tea, taking a breath, because these moments make up our lives. This focus on the ordinary is characteristic of Zen Buddhism, which emphasizes that enlightenment is not a dramatic, once-in-a-lifetime experience, but a gradual awakening to the reality of each moment. As the 13th century Zen master Dogen wrote in his Shobogenzo, enlightenment is like the moon reflected in water. The moon does not get wet, nor is the water broken. Although its light is wide and great, it is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. The whole moon and the entire sky are reflected in dewdrops on the grass, or even in one drop of water. The student finishes her tea, then carefully cleans her bowl and places it back on the table, a sign of respect in the tea ceremony. So every moment is a chance to practice, she says, more to herself than to the tea master. Washing dishes, walking, even brushing my teeth. Especially those moments, the tea master says. It's easy to be mindful when everything is peaceful and beautiful, like it is here in the tea house. The real practice is when things are chaotic, when you're tired or angry or in a hurry. Can you still pour water with full attention? Can you still take a breath and be present? As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind a routine activity you do every day, something so ordinary you usually don't pay much attention to it, like turning on a light, opening a door, or taking a step. Now, imagine doing that activity. With the same mindful attention the tea master brings to preparing tea, noticing every sensation, every movement, without letting your mind wander. How might this transform even the most ordinary moment into something sacred? The student stands, owing deeply to the tea master. Thank you, she says. I think I've been looking for Zen in all the wrong places when it was right here in front of me all along. The mistake is thinking it's anywhere else, the tea master says. Zen is not in the mountains or the temples, not in the books or the teachings. It's in this moment and this and this. She pauses, then adds, now let's practice again. There is much to learn from a bowl of tea. The student sits back down, her posture more relaxed, her eyes more focused. As the tea master begins preparing another bowl, the student watches with a new sense of curiosity, a beginner's mind that allows her to see this familiar activity with fresh eyes. Now, let's practice this tea ceremony mindfulness with an exercise called the Everyday Zen Meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and bring to mind a simple, routine activity you do every day, something like washing your hands, drinking a glass of water, or tying your shoes. It should be something you can complete in a minute or 2. When you're ready, open your eyes and perform that activity, but do it very slowly. With complete attention to every detailed dot, notice the sensations involved, the feel of water against your skin, the weight of the glass in your hand, the texture of the shoelace, between your fingers. Notice the movements of your body, the way your arm lifts, the flexing of your fingers, the shifting of your weight. If your mind wanders, and it will simply, notice that it has wandered and gently bring your attention back to the activity. When you've finished, take a moment to reflect on the experience. How is this different from doing the activity automatically? What did you notice that you usually miss? Now, close your eyes again and take 3 deep breaths, carrying this sense of mindful attention with you. Resolve to bring this same awareness to one ordinary activity tomorrow, perhaps brushing your teeth, eating a meal, or walking to your car. Remember that this is not just a task to be completed, but an opportunity to practice being fully alive, fully present. Peace comes from within, and it is accessible to us in every moment, no matter how ordinary. Like the tea master who finds Zen in preparing matcha, we can find peace and awakening in the simplest activities of daily life. If we have the wisdom to pay attention as we prepare to leave the tea house, carrying the warmth of the tea and the tea. Wisdom of mindful attention with us. Notice how your heart feels. Perhaps there's a sense of gratitude for the small, ordinary moments that make up your life. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to a lake at night, where the moon hangs low in the sky, its reflection shimmering on the water's surface. There, we'll discover the wisdom of recognizing our essential unity with all beings, and how this understanding can free us from the suffering of comparison and separation. Let the warmth of the tea house stay with you as you step outside into the cool night air, where the scent of pine mingles with the fresh, damp smell of water. The path ahead is lit by the soft glow of lanterns hung from wooden posts, guiding you toward the sound of water lapping against the shore. As you walk, you feel the ground beneath your feet transition from packed earth to smooth stones, worn smooth by years of contact with water and feet. Before long, you emerge onto the banks of a large lake. The night sky is clear, dotted with stars that twinkle like distant lanterns, and a full moon hangs low in the sky, casting a silvery path across the water's surface. The lake is calm, its surface like a mirror reflecting the moon, and stars so perfectly that it's hard to tell where the sky ends and the water begins. Near the shore, a group of travelers has gathered, their tents pitched in a semicircle facing the water. They sit around a small campfire, its flames dancing and casting warm orange light on their faces. Despite the beauty of the night, there's a tension in the air, a sense of unrest that seems to hang over the group like a thin cloud. Listen as they speak, their voices carrying across the quiet night. "I wish my life were more like yours," one woman says to another. "You seem so calm, so content. Everything comes easily to you." The other woman shakes her head. "You don't see the struggles," she says. "The late nights, the difficult decisions, the moments of doubt. You only see the surface, like looking at this lake and thinking it's always calm." A man joins the conversation, his voice bitter. "Well, I certainly don't have either of your lives. I work hard every day, and for what? Just to get by. It's not fair." As the conversation continues, you notice how each person compares their life to others, measuring their worth by someone else's standards, like travelers comparing their reflections. In the lake to the moon itself, nearby, an old fisherman sits in a small boat tied to the shore, mending his nets by the light of the moon. He listens to the travelers' conversation with a quiet smile, his hands moving with the same deliberate slowness you noticed in the tea master and the gardener. Finally, he speaks, his voice rough but kind, carrying easily across the water. "Look at the moon," he says simply, gesturing upward with his net. The travelers fall silent, turning to look at him. "What about it?" one asks. The fisherman points to the lake. "And look at its reflection in the water. What do you see?" They look at the lake, then back at the moon. "We see the moon," one says, "and its reflection. Is the reflection less real than the moon itself?" The fisherman asks. The travelers look confused. "Of course it is," the bitter man says. "The reflection is just light on water. The real moon is in the sky." The fisherman shakes his head, continuing to mend his net. But the light that creates the reflection is the same light that comes from the moon. It is not separate, not less. Real. And look, he gestures to a small puddle of water near his boat, where the moon is also reflected. There is the moon again, in that small puddle. And if you were to go to the river that feeds this lake, you would see the moon there too. Even in a cup of water, the moon would be reflected. Take a deep breath now, feeling the cool night air fill your lungs, and then release. As you breathe, notice any thoughts of comparison that arise ways you judge yourself against others, or others against yourself. These thoughts are like the traveler's conversations, creating a sense of separation where there is none, like mistaking the moon's reflections for separate moons. The fisherman's words point to a profound truth in Buddhist philosophy, the essential unity of all things. This is often expressed through the metaphor of Yu Zhao Qian Zhang, the moon shining on 1,000 rivers. The idea is that just as the same moon is reflected in countless bodies of water, the same essential nature, what the Buddha called, Buddha nature is present in all beings, regardless of their circumstances or apparent differences. In psychological terms, this relates to what's known as the common humanity component of self-compassion, identified by psychologist Kristen Neff. This refers to the recognition that suffering and imperfection are part of the shared human experience, rather than something that happens only to us. Research shows that cultivating this sense of common humanity reduces feelings of isolation and increases emotional resilience. One of the travelers, a young woman with a thoughtful expression, asks the fisherman, "What's the point of this? Even if we all share the same Buddha nature, or whatever you want to call it, our lives are still different. Some are easy, some are hard, some are happy, some are sad." The fisherman looks up from his net, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. The moon shines equally on all waters, does it not? He asks. It does not choose to shine more brightly on the lake than on the puddle. But the reflections are different, because the waters are different. Some deep, some shallow, some calm, some disturbed. Does that mean the moon favors one over another? The young woman shakes her head. No, of course not. Exactly, the fisherman says. The same light shines in all of you, but your reflections are different, because your circumstances are different, your upbringing, your challenges, your joys. But the light itself is the same. To compare your reflection to another's is to miss the truth that you share the same light. This understanding of our shared essence, despite our apparent differences, is central to the Buddhist concept of sunyata, or emptiness, which we touched on earlier. Emptiness does not mean nothingness, but rather the recognition that all phenomena, including ourselves, lack inherent, independent existence. We are all interconnected, part of a vast web of relationships and dependencies. like the moon and its many reflections. The bitter man scoffs. "That's easy for you to say," he says. "You sit here by the lake, mending your nets. You don't know what it's like to struggle." The fisherman smiles. "I know struggle well," he says. "I know what it's like to work all night and catch nothing, to see my children go hungry, to watch storms destroy what I've built. But I also know that these struggles are not what define me, any more than the ripples on the lake define the moon's reflection." He quotes from the Avatamsaka Sutra. "In each drop of water, the entire ocean is contained. In each moment, eternity is present." This teaching suggests that each of us contains the whole of existence within us, just as each reflection contains the whole moon. We are both unique and part of something larger, separate, and connected at the same time. Neuroscience supports this sense of interconnectedness, showing that the human brain is wired for empathy, the ability to feel what others feel. Mirror. Neurons, discovered in the 1990s, fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing the same action, suggesting that our brains are designed to recognize ourselves in others. This biological basis for empathy reflects the Buddhist understanding of our essential unity dot. As the conversation continues, the tension in the group begins to soften. One by one, the travelers share their struggles, the fears they've hidden, the pain they've carried, the moments of doubt that plague even the ones who seemed most confident. As they speak, you notice a shift in their posture, a softening in their expressions, as if the simple act of sharing has reminded them that they are not alone. The young woman looks at the fisherman again. "How do we remember this?" she asks. "How do we keep from falling back into comparing our lives to others?" The fisherman points to the moon and its reflection. "When you look at the water, see both the reflection and the moon. When you look at another person, see both their unique circumstances and the shared light within them. When you look at yourself, do the same." He packs up his nets, then steps out of his boat and onto the shore. The Buddha taught that suffering comes from seeing separation where there is none, he says. From thinking I am and you are, as if these are absolute truths, rather than temporary labels. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind someone. You've been comparing yourself to someone you see as better off, happier, more successful. Now, try to see them through the fisherman's eyes, not just their external circumstances, but the shared light within them, the struggles they carry that you can't see, the common humanity you share. Notice how this changes your feelings toward them and toward yourself. The travelers begin to disperse, returning to their tents, but their voices are softer now, more gentle. Some share food, others offer help with a broken tent pole, small acts of connection that reflect the understanding that they are all in this together. Under the same moon dot, the young woman lingers, watching the moon's reflection on the water. "It's beautiful," she says, more to herself than to the fisherman. "It is," he agrees. "And so are you, just as you are. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you are part of this beautiful, interconnected whole." Now, let's practice cultivating this sense of interconnectedness with an exercise called the moonlight meditation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and imagine the moon hanging low in the sky, just as it is over the lake in our story. See its soft, silvery light shining down on you, surrounding you in a gentle glow. Now, imagine that this moonlight represents your essential nature, your Buddha nature. your true self, whatever you choose to call it. It is pure, radiant, unchanging dot as you breathe in. Imagine this light growing brighter within you. As you breathe out, imagine it expanding outward, beyond your body, beyond your thoughts and feelings, beyond your past and future. Now, bring to mind someone you love, a friend, a family member, someone who brings you joy. Imagine the same moonlight shining within them, just as bright, just as pure. See them as they are, beyond their roles and relationships, beyond their flaws and virtues, in their essential nature. As you breathe, imagine the light within you, connecting with the light within them, like two streams flowing into one river. There is no separation, no you and them, just this shared light. Next, bring to mind someone you feel neutral toward, a stranger you pass on the street, a coworker you don't know well. Again, imagine the same moonlight shining within them, just as it does within you and your loved one. Recognize that they too are part of this interconnected whole, with their own struggles, joys, hopes, and fears. Finally, bring to mind someone you find difficult, a person who has hurt you, or with whom you disagree. This may be challenging, but try to see the same moonlight shining within them, however dimmed it may seem by their actions or your feelings toward them. Recognize that they too are part of the human family, sharing the same essential nature. A deep breath, feeling the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings. You are unique, like a particular reflection of the moon, but you share the same light as everyone else. Rest in this awareness for a few moments, feeling a sense of peace that comes from letting go of comparison and embracing your place in the interconnected web of life. Peace comes from within, and that peace is deepened when we recognize our essential unity with all beings. Like the moon shining on 1,000 rivers, we are both unique and one, separate yet connected, each reflection perfect in its own way. As we prepare to leave the lake, carrying the image of the moon's reflection with us, notice how your heart feels. Perhaps there's a sense of softness, a release of the burden of comparison. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is. Now let's journey to an ancient temple where a single lamp burns in the darkness, its flame steady and bright despite the winds that howl outside. There we'll discover the wisdom of recognizing that our inner light can never be extinguished, no matter how dark the circumstances, and how this understanding can guide us through even the most difficult times. Let the silvery glow of the moonlit lake stay with you as you follow a path that winds upward, away from the water and toward the silhouette of mountains in the distance. The air grows colder as you climb, carrying the crisp scent of pine and the faint, smoky aroma of incense. The path is steeper now, its surface uneven with loose stones and tree roots that reach out like gnarled fingers. But the way is lit by the moon, which hangs higher in the sky now, its light unobstructed by trees. After what feels like hours of climbing, though time seems to stretch and contract in the stillness of night, you catch sight of it. An ancient temple perched on a rocky outcropping, its wooden walls weathered by centuries of wind and rain, its roof tiles dark with age. Despite its appearance of antiquity, there's a sense of enduring strength about it, as if it has stood watch over these mountains for millennia and will continue to do so for millennia more. As you approach, you notice that the temple is not completely dark. A warm, golden light glows from within, visible through cracks in the wooden doors and windows. And as you draw closer, you hear a sound, the howling of wind as it whips around the temple. seeming to attack the structure with a fury that would fell lesser buildings. Yet the temple stands firm, and the light within remains steady. You push open the heavy wooden doors, which creak on their hinges like ancient bones, and step inside. The interior is simple, almost austere stone walls, a dirt floor, a single altar at the far end. On the altar burns a lamp, its flame dancing but never extinguishing, even as drafts from the open door cause it to flicker. The light from this lamp illuminates the only other occupant of the temple, an old monk sitting cross-legged on a straw mat in front of the altar, his eyes closed in meditation. As you stand just inside the door, you notice another figure. A young man huddled near the entrance, his body trembling, his face pale with fear. He clutches a traveling cloak around him, as if seeking protection from something more than the cold. His eyes are wide, darting from the howling wind outside to the steady flame of the lamp, as if he can't believe the light persists in such conditions. After a few moments, the old monk opens his eyes and looks at the young man, his gaze calm and compassionate. "You are afraid," he says, stating the obvious, but doing so with such gentleness that it doesn't feel like an intrusion. The young man nods, his teeth chattering slightly, not from cold, you realize, but from terror. "The storm," he says, his voice barely audible over the wind. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I thought it would destroy everything in its path. I thought we would all die." "The storm is fierce," the monk agrees, his eyes returning to the flame. "But look at the lamp. The wind enters this temple. It causes the flame to dance and flicker, but it does not extinguish it. Why do you think that is?" The young man follows the monk's gaze to the lamp. "Because it's sheltered," he says. "The temple walls protect it." The monk shakes his head. "The walls help, yes. But even if the lamp were outside, in the full force of the storm, the flame would not be destroyed. It might be temporarily hidden by the wind and rain, but the spark would remain, waiting for the storm to pass so it could reignite." He stands and walks to the lamp, adjusting the wick slightly. "This is the nature of light," he continues. "It cannot be truly extinguished, only obscured. The same is true of the light within each of us, the Buddha nature we spoke of earlier. It may be hidden by fear, by anger, by suffering, but it can never be destroyed." Take a deep breath now, feeling the warmth of that inner light in your own chest. As you breathe in, imagine it growing brighter, more confident. As you breathe out, imagine it pushing back against any darkness or fear that may be obscuring it. Notice how this feels, not just as an idea, but as a physical sensation, a truth your body recognizes. The monk's words point to a core teaching in Mahayana Buddhism, the inherent purity and indestructibility of the Buddha nature within all beings. This is expressed in texts like the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, which states, "All sentient beings have the Buddha nature. Like the sun, it is always present, but may be temporarily covered by clouds. The clouds represent the delusions, attachments, and aversions that obscure our true nature, but like clouds, they are temporary and impermanent in psychological terms. This relates to what's known as resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, to maintain one's core sense of self and purpose, even in the face of difficult circumstances." Research by psychologist Angela Duckworth and others has shown that resilience is not a fixed trait, but a capacity that can be cultivated, much like tending to a flame to keep it burning even in strong winds. The young man looks skeptical. If this light is so indestructible, why do I feel so lost? So afraid? Why does it feel like the darkness is winning? The monk returns to his mat, sitting down across from the young man. Because you are focusing on the wind and the darkness, rather than the flame, he says. When we are caught in a storm, whether literal or metaphorical, our attention naturally goes to the threat, to the chaos. This is a survival instinct, and it serves a purpose. But if we focus only on the storm, we forget that the light remains, even when we can't see it. He quotes from the Lankavatara Sutra, the ignorant mind, being attached to external objects, does not realize that the essence of mind is pure. Just as a mirror, though it reflects all forms, is not affected by them, so the essence of mind remains pure despite the arising of thoughts. This teaching suggests that our essential nature remains untouched by the storms of our minds and lives, much like the flame remains pure despite the wind that causes it to flicker. Neuroscience research supports this idea, showing that the brain has a natural capacity for neuroplasticity, the ability to reorganize itself and recover from even significant trauma. The amygdala, which processes fear and threat, can become overactive during difficult times, creating a sense of overwhelming darkness. But practices like mindfulness and meditation can strengthen the prefrontal cortex, helping to regulate these fear responses and reconnect us with our core sense of calm and clarity. The young man looks at the lamp again, watching as a particularly strong gust of wind causes the flame to bend almost double, as if bowing to the storm. Yet when the gust passes, the flame straightens again, burning as brightly as before. It bends, he says, but it doesn't break. Exactly, the monk says. Resilience is not about being unbowed by the storm. It's about bending, adapting, surviving, and then straightening again. The flame doesn't resist the wind that would only cause it to be extinguished. It moves with the wind, yielding to it, and in that yielding, it persists. This idea of yielding without breaking is central to both Buddhist philosophy and the practice of resilience. In Zen, it's expressed through the metaphor of the bamboo, which bends in the storm but does not break, unlike the oak that resists and is often uprooted. This flexibility is not weakness, but strength, the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, while maintaining one's essential nature. As the night wears on, the storm gradually subsides. The wind's howl softens to a whisper, and eventually, even that fades away. The first hints of dawn begin to lighten the eastern sky, casting a pale blue glow through the temple windows. The young man stands, stretching his stiff limbs, and walks to the door, looking out at the mountains. "It's over," he says, his voice lighter than before. "The storm is over," the monk agrees, "but there will be others. That is the nature of life. What matters is not whether storms come, but whether we remember the light that persists through them." The young man turns back to the lamp, which still burns steadily on the altar. "I've been through many storms in my life," he says. "Loss, failure, heartbreak. Each time, I thought the darkness would never lift, but it did. Every time, it did. Because the light was always there," the monk says, "waiting for the storm to pass so you could see it again." This is the truth of awakening, not that we eliminate the storms, but that we learn to recognize the unchanging light, even in their midst. As you continue breathing gently, bring to mind a difficult time in your life, a past storm that felt overwhelming at the time. Notice how you survived it, how you persisted, even if you didn't feel strong or capable in the moment. Recognize the light that carried you through, even if you couldn't see it at the time. The young man bows deeply to the monk. "Thank you," he says. "I came here seeking shelter from the storm, but I found something far more valuable. I found a reminder that I carry my own shelter within me, that no storm can ever truly extinguish the light." The monk smiles. That reminder is always here, in this temple, in this lamp. But it is also here. He taps his chest gently, and here, he taps the young man's chest. The temple and the lamp are just pointers, like a finger pointing at the moon. Don't mistake the finger for the moon. Now, let's practice connecting with this inner light with an exercise called the Eternal Flame Meditation Dot. Find a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths to center yourself. Close your eyes and imagine yourself in the ancient temple, with the storm howling outside and the lamp burning steadily on the altar. Visualize the flame of that lamp in your mind's eye, bright, steady, resilient. See how it dances and flickers with the drafts, but never goes out. Now, imagine that this flame is not just in the lamp, but in your own heart center, in the middle of your chest. Feel its warmth spreading through your body, gentle but unyielding dot. As you breathe in, imagine drawing strength from this flame, feeling it grow brighter and more confident. As you breathe out, imagine this light spreading through your body to your fingertips and toes, illuminating every cell dot now. Imagine a storm, literal or metaphorical, something that frightens or challenges you. See how the wind of this storm causes your inner flame to dance and flicker, but watch as it resists being extinguished dot with each breath. Remind yourself, this storm may rage, but my inner light remains. It cannot be destroyed, only obscured. I am more than this storm. I am the light that persists through it. Stay with this image for a few moments, feeling the truth of your own resilience, your own indestructible light. When you're ready, take a deep breath and open your eyes, carrying this awareness with you into your day. Peace comes from within, and that peace is rooted in the recognition that our essential nature, our inner light, is indestructible. Like the eternal flame in the ancient temple, it may flicker in the storms of life, but it can never be truly extinguished as we prepare to leave the temple, carrying the image of that steady flame with us. Notice how your spirit feels. Perhaps there's a sense of quiet confidence, a recognition of your own resilience and strength. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect, just as it is now. As our journey comes to an end, let's return to the beginning, the sound of the stream, the rustle of leaves, the simple truth that peace is always available to us, here and now, if we have the wisdom to recognize it. For in the end, all the teachings, all the stories, all the metaphors point to this simple truth. You are already home, already whole, already at peace. You need only remember. As we crossed mirror lakes, bamboo groves, and ancient temples, images of mirrors, boats, and lamps have taken root in you. May these truths be your North Star in darkness, guiding you back to inner peace amid chaos. Thank you for sharing this journey from Zen Heart Temple. Now you re-embark with millennial wisdom.